Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Merry stupid o'clock. Welcome to another episode of Spelling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. And why am I so irritated and angry this morning? Well, it's simple. For the past freaking 2 goddamn days in a row, my alarm clock on my phone has refused to go off. This is in spite of the fact that just yesterday evening I made sure before going to bed that the alarm was set for when it was supposed to go off. And then I wake up literally 2 hours later than what I wanted to do. So I did not get to do my usual exercise this morning. I did not get to do anything that's in my normal routine. So I am extremely irritable right now. Very much so. So, besides all that, we're going back to that horrible world known as the JRCs. But before we get started, a few of the usual disclaimers. First off, you are going to see the link to this investigation into the death of Linda Cornelison done in 1995 right there in the description box alongside the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, the templates, folks, again, sign your name, click on your senator, you know what they're about, and also the ever-present change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. Now, trigger warning, when we talk about the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you have young children present, folks, please go ahead and use your headphones. Now, again, I got up late and it is 3:07, well, now 3:08, stupid o'clock in the morning. So if I stumble over any of my words this morning or just go off on an rant full of curse words, and that's not your thing, my apologies in advance, alright? Now we're going back to where we left off yesterday morning. So I'm just gonna jump right into it, alright? God, I really need this morning. There are no observations which might include or rule out any atomic abnormality in the stomach. Was there, good God, torsion along gastric ligaments? Was there a paraesophageal hiatus hernia? There is no mention of investigation into H. pylori in the microscopic examination. That is the bacterium which is associated with ulcer disease. Even now, a pathologist might be able to distinguish on microscopic examination a stress ulcer to distinguish on a microscopic examination of a oh my god stress ulcer to distinguish from one associated with H. pylori or an ischemic insult caused by one of the anatomic abnormalities mentioned caused by above. Blood, peritoneal fluid, gastric fluid were not tested for any ulcerogenic, non-steroidal inflammatory drugs. I'm sorry, that's a whole lot of medical talk, folks. And I'm sorry that I read the same sentence 3 times. The patient has a prescription for Nexpoxin reported in her record. It is not clear whether or not she had used that medication in the near past. Why? Why? Even in the 90s, wasn't there a way to determine whether or not someone was taking proper medication? I have to wonder why that was not investigated. He recommends that an independent consultant pathologist interview the original pathologist with regards to gross findings, review the microscopic material, and retest any available blood or fluid for insects to attempt to discern an etiology. Other findings and conclusions. BRI did conduct an internal investigation regarding Vi's death, which apparently included questioning by and taking statements from staff by PC2, having W4 attend the autopsy, and preparation of a report by W4 and or BRI administration. Why were they allowed to be present during the autopsy? How is that an investigation? Were they really trying to find anything out, or were they just trying to find out just enough to come up with a plausible excuse as to why they're not guilty as hell? BRI denied request of this investigator for these statements and report. The denial constitutes obstruction with the investigation. BRI, in at least one other case, provided a DMR investigator with a complete copy of an internal investigation report of alleged wrongful staff conduct. Despite the dereliction on the part of the staff, which were evident in this case, and which contributed to Vi's death, BRI administration took no corrective or disciplinary action against PC1 or the staff at BRI. So even though they were negligent as fuck, callous, unfeeling, completely cruel, and inhumane, they were not fired. Who's surprised? Not me. Additionally, a change in policy precipitated by Vi's death, which BRI represented to the court-appointed guardian ad litem, Bettina Briggs, Esquire, was never implemented. Bettina Briggs attended the autopsy and prepared a final report to the court. I wrote to PC2 indicating concern about the long-term chronic administration of a noxious state aversive, such as vinegar on a silent stomach condition. A response dated August 1st, 1991 with W2 stated, PC2 asked me to respond to your letter of April the 23rd regarding taste adversives. I do not believe that taste adversives could cause or exacerbate a silent stomach condition under regimen at BRI. Well, then you're fucking retarded. I don't like using that word very much, folks. Please forgive me for that. But for the love of God, how stupid do you have to be to not realize acid, as caused by, hot sauce, is bad for ulcers? Or know that it won't exacerbate the condition? Really now? Really? As you know, the stomach ammonia adversive can only be administered 3 times within a 1 hour period. So it couldn't possibly have affected it. God, really? Where the hell do they get their freaking degrees? Toys R Us? After meeting with BRI staff, we have decided to implement the same limitation for use of taste adversives, Louisiana hot sauce, jalapeno peppers, and vanilla and vinegar at been 20 per hour. 20 per hour, but it had no effect on her ulcer. Really? Really? A 2-week training manual was obtained from the agency, dated 1993. The manual was never changed to reflect the reduction from 20 to 3 taste adversives per hour. The manual reads, all students are limited to 20 tastes per hour. The student may receive more taste adversives at the next o'clock. Staff, when interviewed, were not aware of any reduction to 3 per hour. When W2 was interviewed, he was allowed time to review and recall the letter. He also did not recall if he instituted the 3 per hour limit for administration of ammonia. Thus, the limitation of taste adversives were never changed from 20 per hour to 3 per hour. It is undetermined whether BRI misrepresented this policy change to Bettina Briggs, who was preparing a report to the court, or if they were negligent in failing to implement the change. Excuse me, folks. Just a moment. PC3, who began working for the BRI in September 1990, stated in her interview that she was licensed in Rhode Island, but not in Massachusetts. She stated she does at times work in Massachusetts. It's part of the job, she described, working under the supervision of the RNPC1, doing body checks, passing out medications, paperwork, doing everything the RN does, but I can't make a decision without PC1. The Board of Registration in Nursing in Massachusetts was contacted regarding the necessity of licenses in the state. They stated a license is required. It is illegal to practice without it. A review of PC3's personnel file also shows that she does not possess a certification from Rhode Island as a school nurse teacher. Yeah, I'm not surprised. But we're not at fault. Bullshit. RNPC1's personnel was also reviewed, and it was an expired certification from the State of Rhode Island Department of Education, Special Education Unit for School Nurse Teacher, as well as a letter stating the certification needed to be renewed. Rhode Island Department of Education confirmed that PC1's certification expired in August 1991 and that PC3 was not certified as an emergency school nurse teacher. This information was followed up by contacting the Director of Special Education Unit in Rhode Island, Ben Ephraim. He stated the regulations in Rhode Island required the certification of an emergency school nurse teacher at a private special education facility. A person needs to be properly certified. He requested a copy of this report when it is completed. As found by the consultant Walsh, there is no system in place to ensure familiarity with the unique clinical needs of BRI students by local medical providers. Oh, for fuck's sake, really? Really? W2, whose office is located in Springfield, Mass., is considered the primary care physician. He is extremely dependent upon the observations of PC1, who, as noted previously, has had no formal training in physical assessment. Oh, that's interesting. So you have a doctor dependent on PC1 who's had no training. Isn't that just par the course for this place? It seems par the course to me. As she concludes, this lack is of acceptable standards for nursing practice and the lack of proximity of familiar medical care providers will continue to place BRI students at significant medical and nursing risk. Finding with respect to elements of VI's program. Finding and conclusions. Because Vi's death was gastrointestinal in nature and related to ulcers, elements in the behavior program that pertain to her gastrointestinal or digestive system were examined. The specialized food program, taste aversives, ammonia, the overall program was examined as well. The part of this investigation was initially concerned with whether the programs or elements thereof may have contributed either as stressors or physiologically to the ulcers and ultimate preparation. Dr. Rabb concluded that. This should get interesting. The record in my possession gives no compelling evidence that the attempts to feed her or that any of the agents used in aversive therapy or the therapy itself contributed to her demise. Bullshit! Really? So you're just going to give them a free pass? Really? What is wrong with this state? How could you not know the corrosive... what? God. Okay, what does hot sauce and jalapeno peppers have in common, folks? It creates acid. Acid in the stomach, on a stomach that already has an ulcer. And you're going to sit there and tell me that nothing they did contributed to her having an ulcer. Really? Really, you're just going to let them get away with it? God. Despite popular belief, the scientific literature has not conclusively connected paper oils or ammonia with ulcer disease. The concept of stress as an etiologic factor outside the intensive care of a neurologic unit setting is vague and has numerous definitive definitions and connotations. One cannot definitely show that emotional stress, punishment, or food deprivation per se are ulcerogenic factors for the stomach in human beings. God! I hope this is just the science of 1995 because this is utter bullshit. You're letting them get away with it. You're letting them get away with it. Ms. Wash concurred, as she concluded from this consultant's perspective, as well as a through discussion of the gastroenterology consultant Dr. Rabb, the use of prescribed adversives did not subsequently contribute to Vi's demise. I call bullshit. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. In reviewing these areas, other concerns and ultimately findings across about Vi's program and certain practices at BRI, these are set forth below. Additional findings and conclusions with respect to contingent and specialized food programs. Under the contingent food program, a student earns his or her meals by passing a DRO contract or successfully working on the computer. In other words, you don't care if they starve or not. Make it plain now. Make it plain. You don't care that they're starving. But you disabled, you're not really humans, see? So we don't care what happens to you. Thank you for making that crystal clear, Massachusetts. Vi was on a less than a day DRO contract. When she was first put on the program, the interval was for 5 minutes, 1986. By 1989, it increased to 1 hour, and again in 1990, it was increased to 2 hours. The idea is that the student should constantly be attempting to meet the less than a day contract. In other words, you feel like they have to earn their right to fucking eat. And you, a consultant, agree. Completing a less than a day contract, a student is rewarded by earning his or her mealtime food and or one or more nickels. So you think they think this is okay? I don't understand. A new contract is set with the student after the reward is received. If contract is not met, the student will not receive that portion of his or her meal, and the food will be thrown away. There is a loss of privilege period after the student breaks his or her contract. The failed contract is not reset again until the time the student should have passed elapses. BRI's policy, as described in the permission packet for restrictive procedures signed by Bai's mother, described the regular contingent food program and specialized food program as follows. Contingent food. The student earns his or her caloric intake by means of many small portions of food earned throughout the day, rather than in 3 large meals. These small portions are earned by a student when he or she shows certain specified appropriate behaviors or by not showing specified inappropriate behaviors. This is disgusting. It's disgusting and fucking sick. These are human beings, and you're agreeing with them. If the minimum daily total calories has not been earned by 7 p.m., then the balance necessary to bring the total staple food calories eaten to desired target will be dispensed in the form of a non-preferred staple food starting at 7 p.m. And you think that's okay? Alteration in time and manner of staple food makeup may be made with approval of a consulting physician. You all are sick. If special treatment considerations require it, the provision of staple food makeup may not be made with approval of a consulting physician, provided, however, that the individual shall always receive at least 20% of his caloric target, which is by the nutritionist. In other words, but it's okay now. They may not like it, so you agree then that it is okay to feed them something completely awful, made to taste awful, which we all know they're going to reject and not eat. And that they have to earn proper nutrition. BRI will provide all necessary medical safeguards to ensure that health and well-being of the individual is not jeopardized. Bullshit. You don't give a damn. You do not give a damn about those students. Tell the truth. Under the specialized food program, a student must only reach 20 of his or her minimum caloric intake. Thus, a student on the specialized food program who earns 22% of their daily caloric intake by bedtime will not receive any LOP food. If the same student only earns 16% of caloric intake by bedtime, then that student will need to be offered 4% of caloric intake in LOP food. You know that they won't fucking eat. So, what did we learn this morning? Let's go ahead and close out here. Many things. First off, the person that was the head of all of this during this horrible time with Vi was someone who wasn't even licensed to practice medicine in the state of Massachusetts, and whose other certification for Rhode Island was actually expired. Yeah. And what else do we have? Well, we have victim blaming, of course. We're going to excuse the JRC from any contributing factors that they had in regards to Vi's death. We're not going to hold them guilty for neglect or cruel and inhumane treatment at all, because we can't determine ultimately whether it contributed to an ulcer. Please. Really? What else do we learn? We learned that even the people who were handling this investigation at the time feel that the contingent food program, the systematic starving of these kids, was completely reasonable. It's insane. And I don't understand it. Let me know what you all think here in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and close out this morning. We don't get very many views on this channel, especially on this subject. Few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So folks, please don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this morning. As always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one.